Hello, I'm Tamara.
Hi, I'm Florian. We are instructors for CG Pro, and we teach complete courses on Unreal Editor for Fortnite.
Today, we are excited to demonstrate how to build a game in Unreal Editor for Fortnite with the secrets of Luminara Kitbash3D assets. We are creating the quest of the Luminara. You can try this UEFN island through the island code below.
First, we will get set up by installing Fortnite and UEFN and downloading the secrets of the Luminara assets from Kitbash3D. Then we will go over how to use the interface of Unreal Editor for Fortnite. Then we will build the architecture of our game using the Kitbash3D assets. We will also sculpt a landscape around our game area. And after that, we'll show you how to create a simple game using gameplay elements provided by Fortnite. And finally, we will take care of the lights in our environment to create a unique atmosphere. So let's get started. If you do not already have the Epic Games launcher, go to epicgames.com and click on Download. Once downloaded, install it and launch it. You can then search the store for UEFN and install it. It will install Fortnite at the same time if you do not already have it. The download size is quite large, so it might take a while. And now let's head over to Kitbash3D and download the free asset pack called The Secrets of the Luminara. Once downloaded, let's extract the files and we will find a UEFN project. So first, let's create our project. Open UEFN and we will choose a blank template. I will choose to create it on my D drive inside a UEFN folder, and I will name it Luminara Tutorial and click on Create. I now have my blank project. Let's click on File, Open Project, and I will navigate to the folder where I extracted the Kitbash3D project and open the Luminara project. When prompted, click on Leave as is. Once inside, we can see we have our Secrets of Luminara folder, which contains all the assets from the Secrets of the Luminara project. I will right-click on this folder, click Migrate, click OK, and then navigate to the Content folder of my new project. So in my case, I will go to my D drive inside the UEFN folder, Luminara Tutorial, Plugins, Luminara Tutorial, Content, then click Select Folder, and now all the Luminara assets are being copied into my own project. Now I will click on File, Open Project and go back to my Luminara Tutorial project, and I will find all my assets. And we can finally start building our game. If it doesn't work the first time after migrating the assets, just close UEFN and open it back up.
Now that our UEFN project is in place, we're going to be going over the user interface as well as some world-building tools that are going to bring our level to life. To start things off, I'm going to be going over the viewport, which is our visual representation of our level here in UEFN. If I were to hold my right mouse button, I'm able to look around here in my scene, and while holding the right mouse button, I can also use my W, A, S, and D keys to effectively move around here in my scene. I can also use the mouse scroll wheel to adjust how fast I am navigating in the viewport as well. Below the viewport is our content browser, where we're going to be able to find the Kitbash3D assets that we've migrated into this level, as well as Fortnite devices that are going to help us build the game logic of this project. If I were to accidentally close the content browser, we can navigate to the bottom toolbar and find the content drawer. The keyboard shortcut is Control Spacebar to bring up the content drawer. And we can also choose to dock in layout to have the content browser open at all times. Navigating to the right-hand side of the UEFN editor, we can see the outliner, which is going to provide us a list of all of the actors that is within my current level. So if I were to left click on any of these actors, we can see them being selected here in the viewport, but that's not all. if I were to example select the player spawn pad, we can see in the details panel, it is going to provide us more options and properties that we're able to edit in relation to the actor that is being selected. So if I were to choose the grid plane once again, you could see the details panel is going to reflect the properties only related to that particular actor. Now I'm going to be demonstrating how to approach world building with the Secrets of Luminara Kitbash3D modular assets. So first things first, I like to bring in a default cube here from the place actor section, and I'm just going to bring in a shape here and choose the cube static mesh actor. I'm just going to scale this up with, once again, using the keyboard shortcut R, and just make this as big as I would like to give me a scale reference of how large this maze is going to be. Again, keeping in mind of the gameplay mechanics that we're going to be implementing, I want the player to be able to navigate through this maze, and it also won't be too difficult. I want it to allow the player to discover and explore within this temple, but again, the objective is going to be very simple here. So coming into our content browser, now that I have my scale in place, I'm going to come to the Secrets of Luminara folder. I'm going to navigate to the Meshes folder, and this is where I get to explore the modules and props folder to build my temple scene. If I come here into the modules folder of my content browser, we have a variety of static mesh actors that are going to help us world build very quickly and effectively here in the editor. So I can scroll down and see a variety of assets, and the first thing I'm going to start off with is the floor. So we have a variety of different floor assets. So what I notice here is they also have various intersection floors that is going to be perfect for this maze example. To start things off, I'm just going to bring in this modular floor large A part A asset, as this is going to be perfect for the various hallways that I'm going to build within this maze. So what I like to do is just toggle the reference cube I have in my outliner, because I want to make sure that my assets that I'm bringing into Kitbash are nice and snug on my grid plane here. And then toggling back my cube, now I can also begin bringing in other floor assets that are going to help build this maze that I'm creating. So I'm going to navigate here to the modular floor A part B, and I'm going to bring in this asset as well. And this is going to be where the pedestals are going to be placed. So this is where the player will have to navigate back to place all the various artifacts to complete the game. And that way it's very clear what the objective is and bringing all these objects back. So let's begin building out the various hallways and bringing in the walls to complete this temple maze area. So I'm going to just come in here and bring in this small floor asset, as this will allow me to have further control into all the various corridors that I'm going to build. So again, just coming here back in the outliner, I want to ensure that all my assets are lining up nice and snug. And then it's just as easy as holding my Alt click and left drag to build out all the various different hallways that the player is going to be navigating. And again, to bring up that cube, so again, I can get a sense of scale and how far the player is going to have to navigate for all these different assets. So now at this stage, I'm going to just also begin to set dress the maze a bit as well. So now that I have the floor and the walls up, I'm also going to include some of the props that were included to set dress this as well.
Let's work on the gameplay elements of our game. We're making a single player game, so we do not need two player spawners. I will remove the second one. And the game will be about finding lost crystals. Let's go to the Secrets of the Luminara folder, Meshes and Props. Here we find static meshes of crystals and pedestals. Let's add the pedestal static mesh to our world. Instead of using the crystal static mesh directly, we need to create a prop so that we can interact with it later. So let's stay organized and create a folder. I'll call it Game Props. In that folder, right-click and select Blueprint class, and we'll choose the type Building Prop. I'll name it B for Blueprint, then Crystal Prop. Double-click to open it. In the Component tab, you will find a static mesh component. I will go and find the crystal in the content browser, select it, and with the crystal selected, I can then click this arrow to assign it to the static mesh component of our blueprint. Compile and save. Note that you can press Ctrl and Space to open the content drawer when you need it, or click Dock in Layout to keep it open at all times. Okay, now let's move our crystal prop into our level. Okay, to keep the outliner organized, we can do a right click in the outliner and select Create Folder. Let's call it Crystals. Drag the pedestal and crystal into the Crystals folder. Right click on it and select Make Current Folder so that everything we add is added to this folder right away. Drag the crystal to make it a child of the pedestal so that its transform, its location, rotation, and scale is now relative to its parent by clicking this curved arrow. Then just adjust its location on the Z-axis and it will still be perfectly centered on X and Y. Now we also need a crystal that the player will have to find and pick up. For that, let's drag another one into the level. For clarity, let's rename it to Crystal Prop Pickup, and the other one Crystal Prop Place. That's the one we want to place on the pedestal. And let's also rename the pedestal so that it's easier to read. So we want the player to interact with it to pick it up. Luckily for us, Fortnite provides a lot of assets, but also gameplay elements that are called devices, which make game development so much quicker. Let's go to the Fortnite folder, then Devices, Logic, and find the button device and add it to our level. Let's child the button to the Crystal Prop Pickup and zero out its location and rotation. What this button does, let me show you. It's an interactive button that the player can press. The player will think they are interacting with the crystal, but will actually have an invisible button to detect the interaction. So let's configure it. We can use Take Crystal as its interaction text, an interaction radius of 0.6, and trigger the disable function when the player interacts with it, which we'll call the onInteract event of that same button. Let's also rename the button. So I'm going to select it, press F2 for rename, and name it Button Take Crystal. Now let's add a prop manipulator that will let us show or hide a prop. Let's child it to crystal prop pickup and reset its location. Let's also reset the button's location and untick visible in game. Let's go back to the prop manipulator device. What this device will do is hide the prop that it's connected to. By overlapping our crystal prop, it will be able to affect it. So find the hide props function, click on the plus sign to add an event binding, select button take crystal and its on interact event, so that when the player presses the button, the prop becomes hidden thanks to the prop manipulator device. I'm going to save my progress and click on launch session so that it starts loading Fortnite and our level so that we can test it later. In the meantime, let's go back to our pedestal. We need another prop manipulator device. Let's rename the first one to take crystal and this new one to place crystal. Let's add another button device so that the player can interact and place the crystal that they have picked up. Child the button to crystal prop place. Same thing with the prop manipulator called place crystal. And then let's also rename the button device to button place crystal. Reset its location and rotation. Let's configure it. Interaction text can be place crystal. Untick visible during game. Untick enabled at game start, because we don't want the player to place a crystal that they have not picked up yet. Find the enable function, click plus to add an event binding and select button take crystal and on interact. And then for the disable function, select button place crystal and on interact so that this button disables itself after being pressed. Let's configure prop manipulator place crystal. Check the start hidden box because we want the crystal on the pedestal to be hidden in the beginning. Then find the show props function and click plus to add an event binding. Select button place crystal and on interact and also reset its transform. Now let's save your files. Click end game if the game is running, then push changes. And now let's test what we have. So we come to the crystal and see take crystal. I press E and it disappears. Now I go to the pedestal. It says place crystal. I press E and it appears. So it works. Now I'm going to select all these objects that let me take a crystal and place it on a pedestal. And I'm going to hold Alt and move the assets to duplicate them twice, so that I can now have 3 crystals that can be picked up and placed on pedestals. And all the settings are connected to the duplicated objects, so it's perfect. For the second crystal, we want to change the static mesh. So let's navigate to the content folder, Secrets of the Luminara, Meshes, and Prop. I will select the second crystal, then click on the prop for the second crystal in the level via the outliner. I select the static mesh component of that prop and assign the second crystal to it. I do the same thing for both the crystal prop pickup and crystal prop place. Then I select the third crystal static mesh in the content browser and assign it to the props for our third crystal. Another tip, if you press the G key on your keyboard, it will show you the game view, which will hide anything that you would not see in the game. Now we will use the landscape mode to shape the terrain. It's a great tool to create large terrains with interesting shapes. We will cover some of the most crucial tools that you will need to get started making your own landscape. Instead of having these square floors, let's delete those and replace them with a landscape. I'm selecting them while holding Ctrl and then I'm pressing delete on my keyboard. First, as you can see here, we were in selection mode. Let's click on the drop-down list and switch to landscape mode. We can see three sections: Manage, Sculpt, and Paint. We will use all three sections, but spend the most time in Sculpt. In this Manage section, we can adjust a few settings. They are mostly about the size of the landscape and its look. I will make a larger landscape simply by selecting a higher section size of 127 instead of 63. Fortnite provides us with a few advanced landscape materials. I'm going to click the drop down and search for materials that have landscape in their name, and then select the jungle landscape material. Click Create, and after a few seconds we will have our landscape. We are done with the Manage section. Let's skip over to Paint for a minute, as we will soon spend most of our time in the Sculpt section. Landscape materials usually include several layers, and you can paint any layer you want anywhere on your landscape. As you can see here, I have multiple layers, and I can click to select the material layer that I want to paint on my landscape. After selecting it, I can click on the landscape to paint. The first time you apply a new material layer to a specific section of your landscape, it might take a few seconds to add that new layer. I can then paint it as I please, and I can adjust the brush size to paint large areas like this, or reduce the brush size to paint minute details like this. Another important setting is tool strength. If I bring its value down to a very low number, like under 0.1, you will see that I can blend the layer with the previous one, which can really add to the immersion and make your scene look more natural. So now we have a blend of mud and grass. Now let's go to the Sculpt section. The most common tool is the Sculpt tool. If I left click on my landscape, it moves that part of the landscape up. If I hold Shift while clicking, then it digs down into the landscape. Here as well, I can use the brush size setting to affect large or small areas of the landscape. The tool strength setting will make your impact very strong if you use a large value. Or it will make it very subtle if you use a very low value. The flatten tool is also very useful. You can use it to extend a certain height in your landscape. I will use it a lot today. You click somewhere and the flatten tool will bring the landscape to that same level wherever you will drag your mouse cursor. Using a large brush size will help you cover large areas very quickly. Or you can be more detailed with a small brush size. The erosion tool is also quite useful to simulate erosion effects on cliffs and make them look more natural. A low tool strength is usually enough to add some interesting effects. The noise tool can add some random variations on the surface of your landscape, also helping achieve more natural looks. And the smooth tool is nice to smooth out jagged edges, like so. I will now use all of these tools to create my landscape. I want it to look like a mountainous region full of high peaks and steep cliffs. For this, I will use the Sculpt tool to dig deep into the terrain. And the Flatten tool to delineate all the peaks. I will then use Noise, Erosion, and Smooth to adjust the look of each peak as I see fit.
And if I just look in my viewport and zoom out a bit here, I can now adjust the time of day in my scene. And what's amazing is we can do either nighttime, or we can do a sunset, or we can have it, in broad daylight. I can navigate to the sunlight property here. And if I just enable this sunlight, I can adjust the intensity of my sun, as well as I can adjust the rotation on the Z axis. And this is going to allow me to position my light source here so we can see this is updating. Last but not least, I'm going to see if the game mechanics work in our playtest. So I'm going to start the game here. And I'm just going to navigate with my character here. And we can see that everything is working as intended. I'm going to pick up this crystal here. And then I'm going to grab the other one on the other side. And playtesting is good to always see, if things need fixing after the fact. So I do encourage playtesting as you're building as well. So I got that other crystal. And then I'm going to grab the other one right up ahead here. And then I'm going to see if they will all place here on all of the pedestals. So I'm going to place a crystal here, and then place a crystal there. And lastly, there we go. We got all of our crystals set in place. I want to take the time to thank you all so much in joining us on this incredible adventure with the Secrets of Luminara Kitbash3D Asset Pack. Leave a comment if you have a question, and check out CG Pro if you want to take the full course in Unreal Editor for Fortnite. Let us know if you want a part 2 of this tutorial, which we will make if this video reaches 10,000 views in the first month. Thank you and happy kit bashing!